At UMC, access to your healthcare is only a call away. Dial 74-NURSE for free, instant medical advice from experienced and trusted UMC nurses, 24 hours a day. Learn more at umchealthsystem.com.
And welcome in everyone to RedRaiders.com. This little journey is called the UMC Health System AJ Media pregame show. Zach Long here with Don Williams and Krista Pirtle going to get you ready for the Red Raiders game on Saturday night against the Texas State Bobcats. And Don Williams, I'm going to start over here with you. Texas Tech, of course, gets a win over TCU last week. They're 3-0. More importantly, they have a Big 12 win under their belts. Probably a big confidence thing for a young team like this.
Yeah, Zach, I was asked last week how big a game Texas Tech and TCU was for the Red Raiders, and I thought it was pretty big for a couple of reasons. One, that was really the only marquee game that Texas Tech is going to play in the first half of the season because the schedule is not very strong between now and mid-October. And the other thing is Texas Tech had all this good feeling and momentum and everything built up since back in mid-December when Cliff Kingsbury was hired, and I thought it was important that they come out and play a good game last Thursday night to kind of hang on to that good feeling and keep the momentum building, which they did not only as a team, but also I thought in the stands with a really loud, enthusiastic crowd.
And of course, they have sold out the game against Texas State. Ironically, you don't sell out TCU, the students bail them out, show up in mass numbers, and then this week they sell out the Texas State game, Krista. And of course, the Red Raiders with a new shiny Associated Press ranking, checking at number 25 in the polls, but quite frankly, they could give a crap less when we talked to them on Monday about that ranking.
They don't care, and as it should be, they should not be complacent with being number 25. They should want to be closer and closer to number 1 as they can get. They break out huddles with Big 12 champs, and that's what they're trying to do this season.
And of course, Kerry Hyder so eloquently stated, ask us about our ranking when the season's over. Thought that was well done by one of the seniors on the Tech roster. Speaking of the win last week over TCU, guys, a ton of great moments, a sloppy game, but my goodness, we got our dollars worth in terms of entertainment during that. Let's look at a key moment in the TCU win. Krista, let's start with you.
My key moment was Davis Webb's touchdown pass to Bradley Marquez. That was really a spark that the offense needed. Before that, they were in, Marquez called it a funk in the game, and they just weren't really getting anywhere, punting the ball, just not really a lot of fluid motion. And then Baker goes out with an injury. He'll be starting this week is what Cliff told us. But he goes out, and Davis comes in and really rallies his troops to go and score the touchdown.
Dom, what floated your boat?
I'll talk about the other end of the game, not just what happened there late in the fourth quarter, but what happened at the beginning, and that's that Texas Tech scored on the first possession of the game for the third week in a row. Season opener against SMU, they took it down 14 plays, settled for a field goal. Second game against Stephen F. Austin, third play of the game, 42-yard touchdown pass to Jakeem Grant, and then sixth play of the game against TCU, the 50-yard touchdown pass to Kenny Williams. And that was important because you get early momentum and you're not playing from behind, and then of course your defense was able to protect that lead nearly the entire night.
And I think, when you seen that first drive, it went, oh boy, here they go. And I had friends texting me going, oh my God, Tech's going to kill TCU. Then it backed way off, but the momentum from that first drive, Krista, was huge.
It was, and I think it really set the tone that we are Texas Tech. We are not Tommy Tuberville's team. Yep. This is Cliff Kingsbury. We're going to play. He's got that swagger. We're going to match it on the field, and we're going to go to work. Look
for him to try to do that again, only in mass against Texas State on Saturday. Now time for a little segment we're going to call Second Chance to Dance. Guys, I know we're only 3 games into the season here, but I'm going to give you a chance to rethink your preseason prediction on Texas Tech because we put so much emphasis on that TCU game, which of course the Red Raiders won. Krista, has your opinion changed any on your preseason prediction?
Yeah, I'll give him a game or two in the win column. I had him at 6-6, and one of those losses was against TCU, so that win would bump him up to 7-5. I'm going to give him a little room to improve and go maybe 8-4. But I think that Tech really hasn't been challenged lately. I thought that TCU looked really good on paper. They sucked swamp water on Thursday night. I think that we'll really know much more about this Tech team after the Oklahoma game when their schedule gets much more tough.
Yeah, before the season when I looked at Tech's schedule, I had TCU down as a loss. Now, I changed my mind after seeing the first 2 games and picked Tech to win that game last week. But now, if you go off that principle alone, that swings the game. And I had them in 8 wins with a bowl win. Well, now they're probably looking at this team has potential to be a 9-win football team, I think, if some things go well and they just survive the back half of that schedule. I'm not saying they have to flourish, but if they can pick up a couple wins in the back half of that schedule, no reason in my mind that this team doesn't end up winning 9 games. Don Williams, you're going to matter the most because you've been here longer than us. Are you buying into this yet?
Well, I'll resist the temptation to ratchet up the predicted number of victories. I said 6-6 to 7-5 regular season at the beginning, and I'm not going to move off of that just based on one game. Now, the defense has played well, but I thought the defense would play well.
Right.
They're doing the things tactically and schematically that Matt Wallerstedt and Mike Smith said from the day they walked in here that they were going to do. So the defense looks the way I expected it to look, and I think it's not too surprising because you also have so many key players who are seniors, guys like Kerry Hyder, Terrence Bullitt, Trey Porter, and on and on. So I think it's kind of the defense is kind of how I expected it to be, but I think before you can jump out there and say the Red Raiders are going to win 9 games, I think you have to be confident that, okay, is the offense going to pull its weight every Saturday?
Yeah.
Because if the defense doesn't play a lights-out fantastic game last Thursday against TCU, that team's in trouble because the offense struggled for about a half of that game. The offense, you got nothing out of them. And so I think going forward with Baker Mayfield, Davis Webb, the young quarterbacks, and the struggles that this team has running the football and with the offensive line, I think there are going to be some Saturdays particularly when you're on the road in a hostile environment, where you can't get too one-dimensional. And I think that could still cause this team some trouble going forward. So I'll wait a few more weeks before I revise the prediction.
Krista, that's why we pay him so much. That's his job, is to bring us all right back down to earth when we get enthusiastic. But
I'm just old and surly, Zach.
Well, and we have seen a few things go wrong the last few years covering Texas Tech. So I say cautiously optimistic right now might be a way to sum up my mood.
Yeah, I remember a year before last, there was a lot of revised predictions after Tech went and won at Oklahoma. And remember what happened after that?
They did not qualify for a bowl. So, yeah, that's why we're so cranky, Chris. I hope you don't think that we're terrible people for being negative about Tech's prognosis here.
Not a problem.
All right. That is a look back at the old TCU game and our thoughts on where the season might be going. Up next, we're going to take a look at the opponent Saturday night, Texas State, and if, quite frankly, we think there's any chance in Hades that they ruin the Red Raiders weekend, but probably not likely. First up, though, Don, your favorite part of every week, Don's Dining Tips. You got something good loaded up this week?
I think so. I got to remember whose idea this was, but you seem to have a whole bunch of fun with this, so we do what we can to kind of help entertain you.
Well, if you weren't such a good inspiration, Don, I would behave myself, but you're just too entertaining. The people have to see Don Williams and all of his quirkiness. So let's not hold him back from it. Here's this week's Don's Dining Tips.
Gray can. When did they go to gray cans? Where's the red cans?
And welcome back to the UMC Health System AJ Media pregame show. And Don, all the years I've been with you, I've always wondered, where it is you magically seem to find a Dr. Pepper every time that gigantic super tanker runs out, now we know.
Yeah, that's actually not too far from real life, because some people are coffee drinkers. I've had like 2 cups of coffee in my entire life, but my caffeine comes from 44-ounce soft drinks, as you guys well know.
You've probably kept that bottling company in business, to be honest with you.
I could have, yeah.
All right, guys, onward to something a little more serious here. Let's look at our keys to the game for Texas Tech versus Texas State. Of course, the Bobcats now in the Sun Belt Conference under head coach Dennis Franchione, very well known to the Big 12 fans out there. Last year, of course, Texas Tech really got the better of them down there in San Marcos. Krista, what do you see as a key to the game for the Red Raiders?
Penalties. These guys are 116th in the NCAA in their penalties, and I think that this is the prime time to work on them. They don't have flags in practice, and so I think that this is a great way for them to be like, hey, we need to work on this specifically to get better. And if you've noticed in the last 3 games, they've had really big plays that got them a good amount of yards and set them up in great territory, but they were called back because of maybe holding or something like that. So I think that this is really a game where they can work on that and improve, because that's one thing that Coach Kingsbury has harped on since he got here, and it hasn't improved.
For me, Krista, I look at this game and I'm going to theme this as tie your shoes. It's Texas Tech's last chance to really get everything in order before they hit the bulk of the Big 12 schedule. They have an off week next week, of course, but this is it. This is not a game where you want to take a step backward and put any doubt in anyone's mind, including your own, that you're taking Texas State lightly and that you're not working extra hard to do what you have to do here. This is a team that's had their struggles this year. They have let a lot of teams into the backfield. Texas Tech's defensive line should harass the living heck out of Texas State's quarterbacks. They have 2 of them. They will work 2 of them. Isn't going to matter. The key to this game for me is Texas Tech just needs to smell blood, absolutely obliterate this opponent, and send no doubt that they are a Big 12 conference contender, not someone who just had a good start to the season. Don, what do you see as the key to the game?
Pretty much the same thing as you, Zach. I'd say key to the game for Texas Tech is just be who you are. You're a 4-touchdown favorite. You beat this team 50-10 and 58-10 the last 2 years. Go do it again.
Absolutely. Not a lot to get into with Texas State. You can tell all 3 of us aren't real enthused about the Bobcats' chances. Not that they aren't to be taken seriously. They're a Sun Belt team, and does anyone even want to go down the list of Sun Belt teams that have ruined power conference teams' weekends over the course of their history so far?
Yeah. I mean, it can be done. I mean, it's up to Texas Tech guys. It's their job to go take care of business and prepare for this team the way you need to, and not look ahead to the open week. You know, go win this game by the amount of points that you're supposed to win this game, and then next week you can kind of take a deep breath and take it easy for a couple of days.
I know, Krista, you watched the game from last year this week, and you came to my office and went, oh, God. And I said, yeah. And one thing that sticks out, they couldn't guard Jace Amaro at all. And now he is physically better. That dude may have a heck of a game this weekend.
Yeah, I needed a lot of coffee after that. I could have fallen asleep. But the big thing was Jace was a huge target, but also Eric Ward didn't play in that game. Yeah. And so I think that he's going to be a big factor. He didn't do much. He did well blocking for his fellow receivers in the game against TCU, but he didn't make any catches. So I think this game, Eric Ward really comes out on fire.
Needless to say, could be a tad hostile in the Jones AT&T Stadium this Saturday for the Texas State Bobcats. That's a look at our keys to the game for Texas Tech and Texas State. We'll be right back here on the UMC Health System AJ Media pregame show.
At UMC, access to your health care is only a call away. Dial 74-NURSE for free, instant medical advice from experienced and trusted UMC nurses. 24 hours a day. Learn more at umchealthsystem.com.
Welcome back, folks. Let's take a look at what, quite frankly, is a horribly boring Big 12 slate this week. Only 4 other games in addition to the Red Raiders game against Texas State. We'll start at first with could be an intriguing matchup, though, guys. Louisiana Tech at Kansas, Krista. This could be a big moment for Charlie Wise and the Jayhawks.
I'm going with Kansas. This is on their home field, and I think they really take advantage of that loss last week and use that as motivation to win this game.
Yeah, you know, last week, Kansas, they lost at Rice. I predicted that. I liked Rice's dynamic against A&M, and they finished off Kansas pretty well. Louisiana Tech is not the same Louisiana Tech without Sonny Dykes as their head coach. They've been brutal at times this year, really struggled. They got beat by Tulane last week. This is a game where Charlie Weiss sets a standard and says that Kansas could be a 3 or 4 win team this year. I like the Jayhawks, Don.
I'm the same way. My Kansas upset pick over Rice didn't come through the last week, but I think offensively Kansas will be able to do some things against La Tech. The Bulldogs, even in their good years, have never been very good defensively, and also as you kind of lined out, La Tech is still kind of figuring out its identity and what it can do under the new Skip Holtz regime. So I got KU in this one.
A little rivalry here, non-conference though. West Virginia at a surprising 3-0 Maryland team, Krista.
I'm going Maryland. West Virginia did pull out the win last week, but I think they fall this week.
For me, I'm not going to buy into Maryland yet. They have won. They beat Wake Forest, which was an interesting game there, but quite frankly, I am not sold on Maryland. I am sold on West Virginia's progression. I thought they grew a lot last week with Ford Childress. The young kid at quarterback, for me, the key in this game will be Sims, the running back, the transfer from Houston for the Mountaineers. I think he controls enough clock, and West Virginia wins this game. Don?
I think it's one of the most interesting games of the weekend, but I'll take Maryland. They're favored by nearly a touchdown in this one. I'll go with the Terps to get to 4-0.
Damn, you guys left me out there on an island all by my lonely West Virginia self, and God knows you don't want to be lonely in West Virginia. Who knows what would happen to you. Okay, moving on to other fascinating areas of the country. Louisiana Monroe, Duck Dynasty land, meanders into Baylor to take on the high-powered offense of the Bears, Krista.
This will be the toughest matchup for Baylor so far. They face nobody, and I really think that they will get it done. ULM is no match against this high-powered offense, and the Duck Dynasty guys are going to Waco, so I pick Baylor.
Yeah, not going to help Monroe. I think it will be a little bit better grade of competition for Baylor, but I'm like you. The offense right now, it's hard to doubt them whatsoever. Even if the defense has a bad day and gives up 40 points, Baylor's offense is scoring a ton right now. I do like Baylor in that game. Donald?
You know, I'm picking Baylor. I agree with you guys, but I'm really surprised that Baylor is such a big favorite in this game because Louisiana Monroe is 10-6 since the beginning of last season,
right?
And they're not a one-hit wonder. I mean, they upset Arkansas, they nearly upset Auburn, and last year against Baylor, it was a 47-42 football game that Louisiana Monroe led in that game about 4 times, and Baylor didn't take the lead for good until about 7 minutes left. And Louisiana Monroe is a lot of the same people that were on that team last year that made a bowl game, including the quarterback Colton Browning, a kid from Maybank. So I think this could be a pretty fun, entertaining game to watch. Now, I don't think the Warhawks have the firepower to pull it off and to go in and finish the job and win in Waco. But again, I am a little surprised that they're such a huge underdog as they are, given that in these circumstances they've usually given a really good account of themselves for a couple of years in a row now.
And that'll be the end for Baylor. They get into Big 12 Conference play after that, and we'll find out a lot more about them very quickly. Speaking of Big 12 Conference, the only other, I guess the only conference matchup we actually get to see this week with a bunch of teams off, an intriguing matchup with more storylines than you could put in a Don Williams Rangers duffel bag at the airport. Kansas State visits an ailing Texas and their hot seat coach, Mac Brown. Krista?
Texas hasn't beaten K-State in the last 4 or 5 years, and I think that Bill Snyder is a better mind than Mac Brown. If you don't agree with me, I'm sorry. But I really think that this is a game that really sticks a nail in Mac's coffin for probably his last season in Texas.
Yeah, for me, I look at Kansas State. They're not that team they were last year. They've struggled. They obviously got popped by an FCS team, a defending national champion, but still they got popped by an FCS team. They haven't exactly just overwhelmed me watching their last couple games. It's just been that normal Bill Snyder schedule, Don, where they ho-hum their way through a couple lower-grade opponents. They are getting good play. Both quarterbacks are playing, Sams and Waters. But for me, right now, I'm not going to trust in Texas in that defense. Last week, horribly embarrassing, I think, when Hugh Freeze from Ole Miss points out, yeah, their defensive scheme wasn't really any different between the recently departed and then their new guy in Robinson. Don, I mean, things don't look good right now for Mac Brown.
No, and he didn't fire any coaches this past week.
Wait till next week. Somebody's going.
And Kansas State always beats Texas, don't they?
Yeah. You know, not something that I think Big 12 fans would ever digest and say would consistently happen, but old Bill Snyder has caused some damage on Mac Brown, and this may be the ultimate damage, as Krista pointed out. In all seriousness, we're probably looking at the end of an era at Texas, and definitely the end of probably the coaching career of Mac Brown, unless something miraculous happens down the stretch, Don.
Yeah, and I think it could very well come at the end of this season, although I guess I'm the guy who never learns here, and I'm picking Texas being at home.
Oh, good Lord.
I'm picking the Longhorns being at home. Kansas, the one thing that's surprising to me about Kansas State is they haven't really gotten John Hubert, the 1,000-yard rusher, going yet.
Well, hey, I know a team that's not very good against the run.
This may be the Saturday. This may be the
just
defense
put a
to get
BYU
him
jersey
going.
on him, and he's probably going to go for 350.
Or an Ole Miss jersey, yeah.
He might be right, but trust me, if he's not, we will let you all know about it and harass him heavily next week on the pregame show. Guys, that is a look at our Big 12 conference games. Not real exciting, but that last one is intriguing. Let's turn our attention to the aforementioned Texas Tech, Texas State game Saturday night, of course, from Jones AT&T Stadium, a sold-out AT&T Stadium, guys. Krista, I'm going to start with you. How do you see this one playing out?
I've got Texas Tech 63-7. I read on ESPN yesterday, they said, why are we watching this game? Because we didn't eat our green beans as children. It is really going to be pretty much a blowout. I think this is a good chance for the Red Raider offense to prove that, yes, we can still be high scoring even after our low production last week.
That's the key for me. I think Texas Tech's really going to hone in big time and tighten up a lot of things. And this is the answer this week. We've been wondering about this, Don. This is what we're going to find out. Is Cliff his own coach, or does he have a little Mike Leach in him to where when they get up, he will put the foot down on the throat and run up the score and let his kids progress? I think the answer is yes, and the main reason I like that, Davis Webb will probably get a play because they're going to get a big lead. He got a lot of confidence last week, leading them to a win over TCU in the late moments. I think he'll do a lot of damage in the second half. This one's going to get out of hand, Don. I got 70-13 Texas Tech over Texas State.
Wow. You know Texas Tech is the team that had went 8 series and made negative 11 yards during that stretch last week, right?
Yeah, that was
Granted, it's a different team.
That TCU defense is still respectable regardless of their 1-2 record.
Yeah, I think Texas Tech wins handily. I have it more along the lines of 48-10. I don't think that Cliff Kingsbury necessarily will try to run up the score or be Mike Leach-like, but his personnel is simply that much better than the Bobcats are, and so it should get out of hand regardless of whether he's running out first-teamers or second-teamers.
And you guys, I'm sure, will be thrilled. You love it when it gets out of hand and the clock runs because that means deadline is not as big a monster as we usually face with these games that stretch late into the night on the old 6 p.m. kickoffs at Jones AT&T Stadium. There you go. We are across the board in favor of Texas Tech. Of course, it would be a major shock if we weren't. Last non-conference game, though, for the Red Raiders before they get into the bulk of the Big 12 schedule. Soft at the start, absolutely brutal at the end, so should be an exciting rest of the season to cover. That's going to do it, though, for this episode of the UMC Health System AJ Media pregame show. And, Don, we got the old game day section coming out this week to get them locked in for that game. You got something special cooked up for us?
We've talked to John Scott Jr., the Texas Tech defensive line coach. He has an interesting background because he's one of the coaches who did not actually go to Texas Tech and did not coach in Texas like Mike Jinks or Lee Hayes. So, kind of an interesting story on how he arrived in Lubbock, and also a little bit of background with Coach Scott. His guys have really got it dialed up and going good right now with Kerry Hyder and Dartwan Bush and some of those people having good seasons, and so he's the guy who coached them, and we have a little story on him.
We will look forward to that one. Of course, you can find that in Saturday's Avalanche-Journal, or you can go online to LubbockOnline.com or RedRaiders.com for that piece, and you can go there as well for a wealth of other coverage from Krista and Don as they get you ready for Texas Tech and Texas State. That's going to do it, though, right now. For Don Williams and Krista Pirtle, I'm Zach Long. We'll see you out there Saturday.